All right, there we go. Just getting that little bit sorted out. Hello, everybody, and thank you all for joining this TF Labs presentation of how to get a job in Web3. We got some really exciting people. I'm genuinely excited to have conversations with today, and thank you all for joining us. As we like to start these events, I'd love to see from the audience sort of where people are coming into or tuning in from around the world. You know, we here at TF Labs are based in Seattle, Washington, but I understand we've got some people from Miami on the call. Definitely lots of Seattle. Oh, wow. New York, San Fran, Vancouver, Bellevue, North Hollywood, California, Bend, Oregon. Bend's gorgeous. This is fantastic. Well, I think we've got at least 3 time zones represented here. So, you know, it would be great if we could get all 4, and maybe maybe in the future we can expand that number out. But irrespective, so glad to have all of you joining us today. I'm just about to bring up people on the stage to introduce themselves, but today's topic, if you can see the header here, is how to get a job in Web3. So we have 3 fantastic people all working in the Web3 space in different levels of engagement and different roles and scopes. So I'm really excited. So let's get this conversation going. First, I'd love to bring Pinar up on stage to give a little introduction. If we can bring Pinar up. Fantastic. Hey, Pinar.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Hey, Pinar, why don't you go ahead and just give yourself a little introduction to the audience and let them know a little bit about Atlas Space?
Yeah, sure. Perfect. So, hey, guys, I'm Pinar. I'm the co-founder of Atlas Space. We are targeting companies and brands to onboard on our metaverse platform. Atlas Space is a decentralized virtual world. So we basically have got this huge land. We're locating the brands and companies so they can have their private space or public experience spaces. So what happens is any business individual can go to work at the virtual office and then visit their colleagues at another company, or they can meet at the common spaces like exhibition areas, event halls, networking clubs, yoga parks. It's a completely living, professional, but a digital and colorful world targeting the employees thrive, companies have more revenue channels and marketing streams, tell their stories, not like any other way on earth possible with the capabilities of the metaverse space.
Fantastic, phenomenal. Pinar, I'm so glad you're here to join us today. And next up, I'd love if we could get Jewel up on stage. I know we've had Jewel before, but she was just too great last time not to bring back. So we have her joining right here. Jewel, I'm so glad you're with us today. And maybe when we get this the camera and mic on, we can you can sort of jump into who you are and what CoinMe does.
Sure. Sorry, I did not realize I had turned my camera off. I apologize for that. So yes, I'm the head of people at CoinMe. At CoinMe, we really hold a true belief that digital currencies should be accessible to all people. So, you know, most people on this call are, I would consider technically savvy in some way or the other. And so it's quite easy for us to learn and adapt, about Web3 and digital currencies. But there are a lot of people in this world that could really benefit from the equity and opportunities that are offered to us through digital currency. And we want to make sure that that is available to all people, regardless of how technically savvy they are, where they live, or even how much traditional centralized wealth they might have. So at CoinMe, we really do focus on that accessibility, and we have locations across the US with partnerships with Coinstar and MoneyGram, and where people can access digital currency in a much easier and more accessible manner.
Got it. Well, there's some fantastic people working at Coinstar, and we couldn't think of a better person to be the head of the people. And so, Jewel, we're so glad you're here with us. We have someone from the metaverse. We've got someone working in cryptocurrency and crypto banking, so to speak. And so I think to round out the 3 tenets of Web3, let's get someone here who works in the broader blockchain ecosystem. Jonathan Blanco, CEO and founder of TF Labs and NIF Mint. Hey, Jonathan, why don't you just give an introduction to the folks who may or may not know you?
Hey, everybody. So happy to be here. My name is Jonathan G. Blanco. I am the founder and CEO of TF Labs. We're at a TF Labs event right now. So what we do at TF Labs, we've been doing management consulting, particularly in Web3, since about 2018. And we've been hosting conferences and events in the space as well since then. We've worked with some really great startups and companies and brands. And yeah, regarding our events, we actually have an event coming up on June 1st in Seattle. It's going to be at the Triple Door. So anybody who's in Seattle or wants to make their way out this over here, we'd love to have you. But actually who I'm representing right now is NIFMint. So NIFMint is a startup that we spun out of the startup studio of TF Labs. And what NIFMint does is we allow brands to create, mint, and sell and custody NFTs. So we look at NFTs as inventory. So we set up the commerce infrastructure for that. We're hiring for a couple roles in that space, and just really excited and exciting to talk about what's going on, and just looking forward to sharing with people, how they can get roles, not just at our company, but or even the companies that we're talking about today, but just how to really make sure that you're standing out to get that job that you're looking for in Web3.
Fantastic. Well, great. Well, I love this panel we have assembled here, and it really is quite the interesting list of places where we're sharing this out to digitally. Glad we have people from Antarctica and the International Space Station joining us, as it says in the chat. So one thing we love for people to do is to continue the conversation in the chat and to provide questions if they arise while you're listening to these speeches, and I'll do my best job possible to integrate that into the discussion we have. Now, one thing I always think is interesting is if you ask 100 people in Web3 this question, there will be 100 different answers, and that's, how did you get into Web3? Nobody grew up saying they want to work in Web3, mostly because while we were all growing up, there wasn't even really a Web1. And so I would love to hear from each of you how you ended up sort of in this space, and what was your journey to it. So Pinar, why don't you kick this off?
Well, our journey was, very conventional, beyond Web 1, Web 0 probably. We come from architecture background. Our team, we always talk about our team, not the end startup. So team started in developing projects in architecture vertical for the last 17 years, we can say. We did those giant amusement parks, hospital complexes, and residential big complexes, big condo groups. From Europe till Asia. That was the scope of it. I actually come from Istanbul. So then we found ourselves representing this non-happened, non-constructed project level architectural plans on virtual reality to our customers. This got really high attention because we're coming from architecture background. Visuals are perfect. The biggest problem, one of the biggest problems in VR is like the quality and the dynamics inside. But we were super cool about it. We got so many demand. We made like big scale VR projects for global enterprises, like more than 40 products, project-based products. In the meantime, like 6 years ago, we started making this side project and team, like let's build a digital office where people can mingle, because digitalizing, so they don't talk in digital environments, they don't go to office, people work remotely. But there was no COVID back then. So 4 years ago, we had our alpha stage, claiming people jump over middle cities. You can even see a video of our first prototype, the alpha stage on Vimeo in 2018. What turned out to be is it went even imaginable, especially after COVID, things got so faster. With the developments in the blockchain field, people realized the importance of decentralization. So we merged all of them. We combined all of our enterprise sources, the enterprise muscles, and the know-how into the field, because we know our customer, what they need, why do they need Web3, and why do they need virtual spaces, the merge, the junction of it. So this is how we evolved everything to be Atlas Space, whatever we did so far. Now it's a platform, not at the project stage, but has got the customers. It's a living space. So we are going on a good track. So we made our customers are so conventional. They are mostly out of like no information about blockchain or cryptos, but yeah, we've got this big mission like showing them the benefits and dragging them into this fantastic world, because they are not still aware of what awaits them in this field. This misery is sometimes scare for them, but when we clear out the fogs, they're like, oh my god, this has been the thing that we've been looking for so far.
Fantastic. So heard loud and clear that everyone, if you want to get a job in Web3, study architecture in college. Fantastic. That's brilliant. No, Pinar. I love it. It's interesting. I think to the point I was trying to illustrate earlier that I think several years ago, no one was actively trying to get a job in Web3 because either the jobs in Web3 were so niche or people didn't really understand any of the interaction points with Web3. So, Jewel, you're on a very interesting side of the Web3 ecosystem in terms of both working in the space and then bringing people into the organization. And so sort of for us, give us an overview of your journey into Web3 and sort of some trends you might see that exist right now with people you see getting into the space.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I even heard about Web3 before I had this opportunity at CoinMe. Of course, I'd heard of digital currency and the blockchain, but I'd never really kind of dived down that rabbit hole of, like decentralizing like information and data and essentially like how I can benefit as a consumer from that, and how businesses can benefit, and how like globally we can benefit. And so for me, I mean, what originally attracted me to CoinMe in the industry was the entrepreneurial spirit of it all, like the newness of it, the forward motion of our technology. I look at Web3, I think, in the same way that my grandmother, who's 96, probably looked at the fact that she could now call her cousin in Europe. Like, I mean, for me, I'm like, this is huge innovation for us. And so and I find that that kind of similar sentiment comes from a lot of candidates as well, people wanting to leave maybe like traditional industries like healthcare, or maybe they were an engineer for I don't know, like Boeing, and they want to really like join in this movement of this new, like this just all new creation. I feel like we're just creating something here that's amazing. So as you can see, I'm fascinated by it. Like, I'm absolutely fascinated by that entrepreneurial spirit that the whole industry seems to be accepting and having and building. It's the first time I've worked for a startup, and I've worked for a few, where I don't feel like I compete against other competitors. Like, I know we have competitors in our business, but it almost feels like we're all moving together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. I think that's stellar. So
I feel terrible that you were born several hundred years too late to lead the first wagons towards the Oregon territory. But I love your take on just how new everything feels, and sort of how this is an amazing breeding ground for that entrepreneurial spirit.
Sure. And you would not want me to lead you. I died of dysentery so many times.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. If you follow Jewel, you'll get dysentery. Speaking of less about dysentery and more about the entrepreneurial spirit, though, Jonathan, you've been an entrepreneur for a long time.
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur for most of my career. Spent some short stints working for other folks, and I got into cryptocurrency and Web3 back in 2017. I was working at a big box retailer at the time, and had quite a bit of time on my hands. So discovered Web3. I discovered Ethereum actually, and it was when the ICO boom was happening. And, I had learned about Bitcoin in the past, probably about like 2013, 2014, I'd learned about Bitcoin, but I completely ignored it. I thought it was like, silly, internet, crazy, stupid internet money. And that was a mistake, obviously. But when the ICOs came around, that actually got me interested, and I thought it was an interesting way to raise capital. Sure enough, I looked into it a little bit further and realized that that was not a good way to raise capital, and glad that I never did anything like that. But that's when I started to discover how blockchain worked, and this whole notion of exchanging of value and having different participants, and the whole notion of smart contracts. All that started to fascinate me, particularly in how loyalty works and how rewards work, because my background is in commerce. So we were part of a founding team, a starting early team working in loyalty rewards in crypto. Started doing events, and then just been obsessed with it ever since. I remember back then I quit a job that paid me more than I'd ever been paid, that was easy, and I had insurance and all that kind of stuff, to go all in on a startup that paid nothing for 2 years. And I remember at the time I told myself, well, worst case scenario is I'm going to learn a new skill that I can take with me anywhere I go. And, turns out that anywhere I go was, keep working on my own ideas. I always love to hear who the founder, if you're a founder and you're in the audience, I'd love, raise your hand or let us know, like, tell us about your company, and throw that in the comments.
One thing I'd love to hear from the broader panel, because we should all be so lucky as to be born full stack software engineers, but unfortunately, some of us never took that up, studied it professionally, formally, or what have you. And so, for each of you, outside of the software development itself, what is a skill, a trait that you love to see in people, that they have some type of experience that you think would really help them get a job in Web3? Because obviously, if you can code, develop, do the full stack, well, I think there's jobs aplenty. But a lot of us find that because we don't have that, we don't know how to get into the space. So what would you sort of highlight to companies that you're looking at?
Well, I got a funny answer for this. It's not really taught at schools. The skill of connecting the dots is the most essential thing, I think, because this is a huge world with so new updates every day and day. We see new updates. So it's not like you're a regular school and going and learning something. It's not like learning the alphabet. Everything's all over the place, and you gotta be good at merging the dots. Like, okay, I looked at this point, I couldn't see it, so I gotta look at from this point. Oh, maybe it's over there, not even here. So yeah, this is what we're actually looking for, no matter what position we're hiring in our team.
That's really great. How would someone highlight their ability to kind of connect those dots, do you think?
It's like it's not existing on your LinkedIn profiles,
What about one of the things, I have so many answers to this question, and I think they could help Pinar as well, is what I really like to see in candidates, because so many people are coming from different industries and different backgrounds, is some of their personal experiences on their resumes. So if if you're like an avid investor in crypto, don't put any of your wallet information in there, right? But maybe add a section of your resume that says, like something about like your crypto experience or your Web3 experience, or even some of your technology experiences or projects that you've worked on personally. So there's a lot of beautiful open source projects that people can join and stuff in Web3. You can highlight those in your resume, on your LinkedIn, in a GitHub account. And then recruiters and hiring managers can see that information. So it might not be something you've done professionally, but something you've done personally that you can bring to that job interview, and ideally to that future job that you're going to have.
I love that. I love it so much. And this is real, I think, meat for the audience here is, what are 2 or 3 things people could do on their resume that would take them from the thick stack of papers down to the list of people that you'll give serious thought and consideration. you know, a MetaMask account.
Good start point.
I mean, you should always, without fibbing, try to tailor your resume a little bit to the roles that you're applying, right? Because a lot of companies use AI to filter through those resumes. So you want to make sure that there are some keywords there. But I always like to see, let me see, one, any kind of training that someone's done, even if it's just like a Coursera course you took, or maybe you went to Bitcoin 2022 last week, you know, something like that kind of shows that mindset for learning and growth. And those are, I mean, you can find plenty of free training courses for that. Let me see. For us specifically at Koimi, it is nice if someone says something like, you know, experience MetaMask, or talks about like an NFT or something, just has like one little liner that kind of lets us know that they have an interest in the industry and a personal experience. Again, don't put any of your personal information on your resume, like, but, and then if you have a link to any, if you're an engineer and you have a link to any like GitHub like accounts or any like open source work that you've worked on, and or if you are maybe a freelancer and you have like a couple of articles personally that you've written in this world, if you're, feel free to intermingle your personal experiences with your work experience when you're joining Web3. Definitely. This is in a very inclusive industry, and I have yet to run into a company that's not hiring. They're not hiring just skills. We're hiring people.
Yeah, I actually really love this question because you know, the thing with any role, regardless of the company, right? If you're going to apply to a certain role, having a level of interest or experience in that type of vertical is going to be helpful, right? Doesn't mean you have to be an expert. So ideally, you either have professional experience, but if you don't have professional experience and you have personal experience, if you have neither, then, you know, what's the other differentiating factor that, you know, gets you into that? So someone actually, I pulled up an email real quick because someone asked me this, and I go, I would summarize getting a job in NFTs or Web3s in 3 main points. You need to have at least one of the 3 and ideally 2. So some sort of job vertical expertise. If you're looking into a Web3 PM role, but don't have Web3 experience, be the best PM that you've ever been, right? Or be an outstanding marketer or outstanding, like whatever your job vertical, like do that really well. If you're joining a startup, depending on what phase you're in, you know, if it's a more mature startup, having a little bit of corporate experience is actually really good, but still having the startup mindset, right? So if you come in with like, hey, this is how we've done it at our big corporate company and you're doing it wrong, that's a really good way to alienate yourself and like lose favor. But if it's more that you're like, hey, like I understand the startup and these are some things that we can do to move this along, you know, basically having that professionalism that a lot of startups frankly need, and why they get specialists to help mature the business, but having that startup mindset at the same time. And then last is, you know, either personal, like I said at the beginning, either personal or professional experience with Web3. You know, if you're applying to an NFT company and you don't own a single NFT, like that's like probably a big problem, you know, overall, because it's not that you couldn't necessarily get a job. It's that other people who are applying for that role probably have NFTs, right? So then they're going to, you know, stand out overall. You know, the last thing I would say too is just, again, it's also going to depend like what phase you're at, but Pinar, I love how you said it. It's really that ability to connect the dots. And the way I look at it, or the way I like to call that is, you know, people who can kind of show you how they think. If you remember in math, right? Like, you know, you can use a calculator and you can solve just about any math problem. But when we were in high school, they was like, hey, show your work. And you had to break down everything that you did. Well, one of the main reasons a teacher would have you do that is so that you could showcase how you are thinking. And I think, you know, for people who are trying to get jobs, is really being able to articulate how you think and demonstrate that, it really can be a difference maker for you.
Well, there's a really interesting question that I kind of like to parlay into all of this. And for those of you that have your hands raised in the audience or are looking to come up on stage, you know, please submit your questions in the little question section in the chat. It's the two little question bubbles. So if you click on that and put in your question, we'd love to maybe have you come up on stage and ask the questions or talk about your questions here. But we talked about if you're going to be the best PM, or if you want to be a PM but you don't have crypto experience, be the best PM, right? Or show that you have some kind of experience in this vertical or that vertical. But Jake asked a great question for students seeking internships in the space, because they haven't really had the time yet to develop, let's say, hard business skills or hard business vertical experience, and maybe haven't had as much time as other people to explore sort of cryptocurrency. I know that companies love to take on internships, and it's always sort of a balancing act of, do we have enough work to justify having an intern, and is the intern capable of doing this work? But do you have any advice for people who are trying to get internships in the blockchain space? So maybe not a full 9 to 5 days a week, but at least a little bit of traction, at least a little bit of movement with the company.
Networking is pretty helpful. So doing stuff like this, like joining, this group and being on Discord and networking with people is a great way to just connect and then to share out like, hey, I'm looking for an internship, in this, be specific in what you want your internship in. And so that is definitely, you're taking the right steps there, Jake, by joining an event like this. And then of course it's never frowned upon to look up a couple of companies that you really might want to work with and just reach out to them. Like, I think I probably respond to over half of the internships requests that I get. Do we hire them as internships? Not the majority of them, no, but it gives me a connection into the people coming into the industry that are new. And then I will share that information out with my cohorts in the industry, other HR people that might be looking to hire interns. So really just networking is a really great way to get your name out there.
Yeah, definitely networking. I think also, when you look for an internship or you start an internship, I think the biggest mistake a lot of students make is they make the internship very much about themselves, which I totally understand why you would do that, because like you're trying to gain skills and you're trying to do these things. But at the same time, it's in your best interest to really make it about the company and, treat it like an actual job, right? So like the company is going to bring you as an internship, but they're not doing that as an act of charity. They're doing it because they see potential in you. And then they frankly also have work that needs to be done. So, coming at it from like, hey, like this is what I can do and this is what I can achieve and this is what I've done, all the same rules apply. I think the other thing too is some people might disagree with this, but like you have to be pretty flexible and pretty amendable to, what the job needs overall. So meaning if you're like, hey, I want an internship, but I can only do this, 1 hour on Tuesdays and like 4 hours on Thursday and what 8 hours on Sunday, like the business isn't open on site, right? So you're basically, the more difficult you're making it for someone to plug you into how their system works, they're just going to go to the next person that, has it more available. And, that's unfortunate. Look, we all have weird schedules or whatever. And I know it's difficult. I worked my whole entire, career my whole entire college life. So I get it, but you just got to try those different things.
On our part, we just would love to see what kind of stuff they were interested in so far. No matter on hands-on technical background or soft skills, doesn't matter. For example, last week, for Complete Week, I participated to Solana's Hacker House. So what happened is the guys just published a cool SDK and these development guides on the internet. Any team, any random 3 people could make a team out of that and show their skills in 1 week's time. And I can assure you that there were a lot of good products, actually real products that came out in 1 week time from just small teams, 2-person, 3-person, even individuals. So any interest, I completed this tutorial, I completed this course, oh, I tried to set up this network and tried to understand their SDK, here is what I came with it. Any simple thing, because like Jonathan said, mostly it is for students, it's not for the teams. To make it a two-way relationship, if you show the company that you are actually really going deep on what you are interested in, what you claim, that will make you on the first line to be approved by the internship, line. So, because the companies always prefer, in the end of the day, having some, efforts worth given and taken. We don't act our interns like, hey, you're interns, you try to do that, and giving the homeworks and leaving them alone. We're just directly plugging them into the real work. So they suddenly find themselves doing actual work in the mainnet, let's say, so in the Web3 language. So our company's mainnet is always getting these interns. So we appreciate your seeing your previous effort in what you're claiming.
I think the other thing I would share too is that, for the most part, even though Web3 has grown quite a bit, the community is still fairly small. So for example, like, let's just take Seattle, like, most of the founders, most of the companies know each other or are like one person removed from each other. So if you do a good job as an intern somewhere, and then you apply for like a full-time job, like chances are there's going to be some references coming around, and boom, now you land your better job. But similarly, if it's not a great fit or something, right, like there might be some warnings that take place. So, really also know that, when you are in this space is because it's still small, like there are lots of great opportunities to, really showcase and grow and learn.
Yeah, and maybe also just keep in mind that a lot of companies hiring interns are looking for that next wave of employees. So if they choose to hire you as an intern, it's very likely that they're hoping that by the time you graduate or your internship is over, that you can come on as a full-time employee. So it's almost like a long audition for a job.
Yeah, very good definition, like long audition. Liked it.
I love this, and Jake, I hope that you got some value out of this. I want to show people the power of asking questions to the panel, and if you hit questions that are in the sweet spot and really what we're looking to discuss, you're gonna get long and great answers from all three of the panelists. A question I wanted to ask for you all is, and Jewel, I think maybe you were hinting on this a little bit before, but what are some pitfalls people make when they're looking to get jobs in the Web3 space? What is something that people think would be more impressive than it is, or things that you see that are almost like red flags to you for people looking to get jobs in this space? I know that you said don't put your wallet address on there. I think a great example is I can speak at least for us, and I'm sure this is for most of the companies. We're not so much interested in how much money you've made as a crypto trader, because that's still maybe great for a big bank, but we're trying to build solutions, we're trying to build products, so that doesn't fit. So
yeah, though we do like that you crypto traded, because that means that you've spent some time with it, right? So I'm the worst crypto trader, by the way. Never take my advice. I'll start on some red flags, I guess. So, or not red flags, or just things to kind of watch out for.
Stay away from, yeah.
Yeah, stay away from. Look, I think for the most part, when we're talking about crypto or Web3 companies, the grand majority of them are startups at different levels of different stages. Like the most graduated are going to be your Coinbases and Binance and Gemini and some like these really big exchanges. But for the most part, everybody is still like series, B, C, and below. So, because of that, you have like the rules of a startup that apply. And then, so I think it's one of making sure that you're good, you're easy to work with, and you work hard. This might be an unpopular thing, but like most of these startups are just really trying to figure things out. So like if you're very much of like, hey, I need work-life balance and I need to be out by this exact time and so forth. I'm not saying that you can't do that at some of these, but that's going to be like a more established company. But if you're joining like an early stage startup, don't join an early stage startup for work-life balance. Like that's not the place to do that at. Whereas, if something's maybe more established and like they've been able to establish more a culture, maybe they have, more, processes in place, et cetera. The other thing is that you're probably going to get paid a little bit less than you would get paid at a bigger company, right? Like you could make a lot more money working at Amazon, working at Facebook, working at Google, and all these really awesome, companies than you probably will in Web3. But what I like to tell people is, yes, people, kind of join early stage startups for the equity and these sort of things, but most startups don't work out. So you probably won't get the equity. So then if you think about it that way, are you going to learn enough? Are you going to satisfy like your creativity enough that it's worth it no matter what? And like, that was the answer for me. It was like, even if I don't make money, the fact that I'm learning here makes it totally worth it, because I can go get a job at Google or Amazon some other time in the future, but I'm not going to have this opportunity to learn this now, was my thought, at least.
I agree with a lot that Jonathan said. And to circle back, Mike, red flags on resumes and things like that. The blockchain and Web3 and any of these industries, cryptocurrency, is an industry that just really loves data and the attention to detail. So make sure that you have an attention to detail on your resume. I know it sounds silly. You've probably heard it most of your life. Attention to detail is very important. It's something that will catch my eye or my interviewer's eyes when something's missing. So that's certainly really important. And then highlighting your accomplishments is always something that you want to do in a resume. And if you're coming from only large organizations or then you might want to get a little more creative with your accomplishments. And that's only because, and I know that Jonathan's touched on it a little bit, there's a big difference between working at a startup and working at like an Amazon or Microsoft. It differs in many ways. One that I find is most impactful for people is the resources that are available to them. At a large company, you might be hired, to be a people manager, and that's what you're going to do 90% of your time. You're going to people manage. But at a startup, you might be a people manager, but at least 50% of your time, you're also an individual contributor. You're also doing the work. I think I'm being generous. It's like 70% of the time. But so at a, highlighting those accomplishments, or that your ability to, what is that word? Have grit to get the work done, to roll up your sleeves. And you can do that regardless of where you come from. But those are some things that, that can kind of stand out in a resume. And then I know I'm going to also kind of piggyback a little bit on what Jonathan was saying about startups and the benefit of working for, these small organizations, small to medium-sized organizations. He's correct. Most startups, especially Series A and Series B, are not going to pay at those top ends of the benchmarking data. Like if you Google engineer and Glassdoor, they're not going to be paying that top range. But they are going to give you equity and, more importantly, a quicker opportunity to learn and to learn multiple functions than you would at a larger organization where you're stuck in one resource. Like you do, this is your job. You're a cog in the machine. At a small company, no one gets to be just a cog in the machine. You're all the machine. Everyone's all the machine all the time. Like you get to learn how to do everything. If I decide that I want to learn more about compliance and regulation, then there is legitimately nothing stopping me from going to my compliance team and being like, hey, can I learn about this and maybe take on a project? Yeah. It's the ability to learn and grow your skill set at a small company is astronomical compared to one of those large Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, I was talking to a candidate recently, and they're letting me know, like, hey, like, if I do keep doing, and they're at a big company, and they go, hey, if I keep doing what I'm doing, like in about a year and a half, I'm going to make principal. And like, if I'm a principal at this company, then I can get any job I want and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't disagree with what you're saying. Like, you're totally right, of course. Frankly, if you're, a senior engineer at that company, you're going to get a job anywhere you want to. But, basically what I said to them was, if you, whether it's my company or someone else's, if you are a principal or early engineer that takes something from, 0 to 1 to 2, that's even more valuable than being a principal at said company, right? So, those are things that as a job candidate you have to weigh out. Is, hey, is this job this company that I'm applying to, like, can they actually go the distance?
Another red flag from me. We really, guys, don't like those people who are working at multiple projects, and like I'm hiring full-time people. So once I met a candidate that is telling me like he's working for other 3 projects and now this will be the 4th at the same time. This is not happening. This is not us. As Jonathan said, it's like a startup almost. Mostly the startups actually you're working for Web3. So we're running together. We're running as a team. We're all together, sleeping together, crying together, having fun together. It's like, seriously, I remember a Sunday, midnight 3 a.m. still trying to solve a bottleneck in our project, but Tuesday at 3 p.m. having this pool party together. So the timing perception is a little bit different, and we want our team friends, team members to be fully mentally, at least, with us. We're not looking for freelancers. If we were looking for freelancers, we would go to freelancer websites. So just keep in mind.
That's brilliant. I love all these answers, and it's putting us in a great place here in a little while to sort of condense those thoughts together for how to get a job in Web3 and how to not get a job in Web3. But I would love to do just a little rapid fire going through the questions. Some of it's about working in Web3, some's a little tangential, and whoever is the first to respond, please take it away. But I see someone asked if they have an NFT startup as a collective agency to onboard artists to sell and launch their NFTs, and they're looking for some Solidity developers, smart contract developers, general development. Any ideas to network to find good candidates? Anybody have thoughts on that? Fingers on buzzers.
Yeah, I would say on this question, so there's a couple ways to think about this, right? Like if you're not able to pay, going back to what Pinar was saying, if you're not able to, kind of like the reverse of what she said, if you're not able to bring this person on full time, I hesitate on bringing someone on in a freelance capacity for that type of role, because you kind of have like this one-to-one relationship. So I would recommend actually more going with another agency or partnering with an agency that does that, because at least, if something wrong happens, or like there's that agency has more skin in the game than say like a set individual. So just from a more protecting yourself standpoint, that's how I would go about it, as opposed to just finding, a freelancer, because maybe that freelancer gets busy or doesn't deliver, and now you're just stuck, and have to find something else. It's just more risk.
Great. The next rapid fire question here is, are there any Web3 companies working on combating the influence of hate crimes, war advocates, money laundering, human trafficking, in other words, for the betterment of the world? Does anyone want to take that?
So I don't know about like companies specifically doing that. I do know there's organizations that are, call it in the, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically doing good category. So like Mercy Corp, which, they're everywhere, but they have a big headquarters in Portland. They're really into the Web3 space actually. And they're doing some interesting things. as far as like money laundering or those sort of things, I don't know. But one of the interesting things about blockchain overall is how just the fact that it's not as anonymous as people think it is, right? Like I was like, oh, it's like, it's not, it's like, no, like there's actually a record on it, and people do things that can like kind of track back where things originate from. But I don't know of any. Does anybody else know of any companies doing that?
I don't, but I can speak that the majority of at least digital currency companies, anyone working within digital currency, I haven't ran into a company yet that didn't have a compliance team. And what that team is doing is scouring all the transactions happening on their platform and looking for things that may be nefarious and catching them, because I mean, there are so many beautiful aspects to Web3. But one of the challenges is that, you can, put stuff out there and it can be out there forever. Someone can download it, they can move it on, they can, there are some challenges when it comes to hate crimes and nefarious actors. But I think the important thing to know is that although there are challenges, the majority of these startups and these companies operating in this space legitimately are also taking efforts to make sure that it's legitimatized. Like, is that a word? Did I just make that up?
It sounds legitimatable.
I am not having a stroke, I promise. But
I think it's technically legitimized.
Legitimized.
But I'm the word. Don't take that from me.
Attention to details matter, folks. So, but it is. I mean, all these companies are doing something, including my company, to try to ensure that we are not only creating, being part of a good industry and creating a safe industry as much as we can, but also creating something that is legitimate to the outside world, right? Like, I want the US government or the SEC to look at digital currency and be like, they're doing all they can to make sure people aren't laundering money or etc. So we're all trying our best. But again, I also don't know any companies that are focused on that.
Jewel, I've got one rapid fire question for you, and then Pinar, 2 rapid fire questions for you. And then we'll lead this up to a closeout here. Jewel, talking about security in Web3, do new hires and interns have to worry about their security, their personal security?
About their security? No. I mean, no more than you would at any other company. I mean, actually, yes. If you're joining a startup, and a lot of startups don't have an infrastructure, right? So if that CTO, whoever is onboarding them, calls you and says like, hey, why don't you email me your social security number, or text me your social security number so I can enter you to the system. Don't do that. For me, that's actually a red flag. People in the Web3 world should be a little bit smarter than to just send that information over. Call them and give it to them if there's no other secure way to transfer it. But outside of that, no. When it comes to hiring employees or interns, most companies use a very secure method. And if they're bare bones, brand new, I mean, you can ask them and should ask them about what their security measures are. If they're paying you on QuickBooks, do they have a spreadsheet that has all the employees' information? Where is that spreadsheet? Where is that spreadsheet stored? Is it on someone's computer? Like, could someone just steal that computer and have access to everything? It's perfectly fine to ask those questions, but your information has to be monitored per privacy laws that are in each country has their own. Most Web3 companies eventually try to take that step towards SOC verification. And so in order to do that, most follow GDPR guidelines eventually. So if you're aware of that. So I wouldn't say you have to be worried about your security at all. No.
Fantastic. Jewel, thank you. And you're the perfect person to talk about that. And Pinar, I think you're the perfect person to talk about this. Is there a demand in the space for UX, UI? What about systems analysis, quality assurance? Do you see a demand in the space for these kind of?
Oh my God, looking at metaverse perspective. Yeah, I mean, guys, this is all UX and UI. I mean, yes, we have got this infrastructure that is very important, but it's not all about this construction part. It's about how we show it, how we pull the users in it. Because here is the thing: when things are in the 2D space. We see it floating. It's easy to direct people to do what you want them to do, but we are talking about the 3D spaces, 3D interactions. That also includes those blockchain and cryptocurrencies, integrations, and NFTs hanging everywhere. So you want your users to get the idea about what they need to do instantly. You don't want them to like look at the screen and feel like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and turn it off. You have to show them the way. You have to make them click that thing that you want them to click. You have to lead them to this activity, and everything planned should be offering something better than this actual physical world. Because we have got unlimited spaces, we don't have gravity, we don't have material science, we don't have economical limits to construct anything in metaverse. So UX, UI, that is definitely the one of the very major stones in this space.
Great. I love it. Thank you so much. Well, you all are incredible, and I savor these moments that I get to ask you these questions, and that the audience, that I get to relay on behalf of the audience this information. So to sort of take us home and close it out, I'd love for each of you to just sort of tell everyone listening about the jobs that you're looking to bring people on for in your organization and in your Web3 space. You know, what are you looking for, and to give you sort of that little open call for what you need or what you want.
So I can start that. Like in Atlas Space, we are actually hiring for Web3 implementation. As I told, it is a product that is working, but it's now working as a proper Web2 application. So now it is time we're constructing these lands, these wallet integrations, these, you know, chain cycles, NFT marketplaces, actually every tip point, even the banking stuff inside with cryptos. So no matter what Web3 point you're developing, we somehow probably touch that space in need. So please take a look at those other metaverses that is very familiar today to your ears. Maybe like Decentraland, Sandbox, whatever they are doing, these guys are constructing. So if you think any part of those things you are able to do that, we are open to discuss with you.
Fantastic. I love it. And I'd like to thank Ross, our community events manager. He just put your socials up in the chat. I hope you don't mind, but please feel free to connect with Pinar. And if you'd like to talk more about this, Pinar, I'm sure you'd be happy to talk more with people about this, right?
Yes, exactly. I'm just noting down my Twitter and Telegram. Anyone ping me. These are the most used platforms to ping someone for Web3. Welcome aboard.
Fantastic. Jewel, why don't you go next?
Thank you. Yeah. So we're always growing. We're not aggressively growing right now, which is kind of lovely because I'm trying to hire another recruiter for when we do. But it's kind of funny. But I am looking for a compliance manager if anyone here happens to be one. And then that is the team that again is making sure that that digital currency companies like Coinme are following the regulations and catching those nefarious actors. But our product team is hiring pretty actively. In fact, there's a lot of product opportunities currently in Web3 in general, product and program manager or project manager roles. So take a look at the Coinme website and go to the career page. Tell me, reach out to me if something seems interesting to you. And if not, but you're really looking for a specific role, you can still reach out to me and I'll let you know if we have something. And if we don't have something coming down the pipeline, I'll let you know if I know anyone who does.
I love it. Awesome. Fantastic. Jewel, thank you so much. Jonathan, do you want to close this out and maybe put in a little reminder about the TF conference coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, great job leading this conversation, Mike, and Jewel and Pinar. Thanks for joining us. Look, we're hiring for a couple different roles, primarily on the engineering side of things. We're looking to hire a director of engineering who has a background in commerce or payments. And then we're also looking to hire a director of engineering that has experience, in some sort of Web3, whether that be smart contracts or just, working at a Web3 company that has a little bit more knowledge there. And then we are looking for a product manager as well overall. So definitely reach out to us for that. And yeah, as Mike said, we just to do a little bit of a plug for those that are in the Pacific Northwest or want to travel out here on June 1st, we will be hosting our TF6 conference. It's called TF6 because it's the sixth TF blockchain conference that we'll do. And it's an all-day event, starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, goes all the way through the evening. Really great, panel discussions. We have speakers coming from all across the globe. And we do a really good job, I think, of helping you meet other people. So the best part of our conference is the networking overall. And all the food's included, by the way. It's going to be catered by the Wild Ginger, which if you're in Seattle, it's a really great venue overall. So hope to see you there. And you can reach out to us with any questions to join as well. And this, by the way, this how to get a job in Web3. This is our second time doing this, and this is something that we're going to be continuously doing. If you, please reach out to Jewel, Pinar, or myself if you are looking for a role. And if you're a company that's hiring and you want to share that you're hiring, you can also, of course, feel free to do that as well too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for coming. And special thank you to the man behind the scenes, Ross Holtrup, our events and community manager, for running this so that I don't have to be talking and typing at the same time. Big thank you to Ross. Thank you everyone for joining. And we hope we can get you all to join us in either our upcoming conference or in our next online series. So,
yeah, and for everybody that's here too, hang out for a little bit and go to the tables. We'll just go to the breakout tables for a second and just say hello to folks. And yeah, we'll catch you later. Thanks so much.